God wasn't just talking to Isaiah and Ahaz and Judah. He was talking to all people across all time and all space, saying, I am with you. I'm not going to abandon you to the brokenness and hopelessness that your sin created. I refuse to leave you in that space. I'm stepping in. Where we feel overwhelmed and alone and unable to address all the problems that are plaguing us and all of the people around us. We've been in that spot where it feels like hope is impossible to hold on to, and we're powerless and all alone. And the question I want to ask this morning is, what do we do with that? Like, how do we deal with that sense that I'm isolated and I'm helpless and the brokenness of the world is so big it just might crush me? Well, God has something to say to us in that space about who he is, how he loves, and how he moves in the world. And part of what he has to say is that he is Emmanuel. What child is this? What's the name of this baby lying in the manger? Well, that baby is Emmanuel. That's one of the names the prophet Isaiah gives to the promised Messiah, gives to Jesus. And to fully understand the context of Emmanuel, what it means, like what it's meant to Christians for thousands of years, and what it means to us, we gotta go way back, like 3 millennia, to a time about 700 years before the first Christmas, before Jesus was born. So if you have a Bible handy, you can crack it open to the book of Isaiah, chapter 7. If you don't have one, no worries. The words are going to be up on the screen. If you need one, or your kids need one, we have them for all ages back in the Next Steps area. They're completely free. We love it when they disappear. Please grab one before you leave today. Before we dive into Isaiah, just a little bit of background in terms of what we're looking at. This is the 8th century BC. And the nation of Israel has now been split into 2 kingdoms. Like David and Solomon built this great kingdom, but after Solomon died, the 12 tribes couldn't agree on who should be the next king. And so they just became 2 separate nations. You got Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And at the moment where we're about to dive into their story, Israel is wicked. I mean, they're evil. They've had a string of horrible kings. They're doing terrible stuff, infant sacrifice, and a whole lot of other things that are just horrifying, right? And Judah is doing a little bit better. Not a lot better, but Judah's had a few different kings who were chasing after God and leading their people to chase after God, and most of their kings were bad too. But at the very least, in this moment, the nation and its king are listening to the great prophet Isaiah. The problem, though, is the king is this dude named Ahaz, and he has really, really weak faith. Like, he's paying lip service to the idea that God is real. He's like, I kind of trust God, but mostly I just trust myself. And then right at this moment, when Isaiah 7 happens, he gets word that something horrible is on the horizon. This enemy nation of his, Aram, has actually made an alliance with Israel, like his own flesh and blood, his own people. And King Pekah of Israel and King Rezin of Aram have decided that they are going to wipe Judah off the map. And so Ahaz panics. Because wouldn't you panic if you're like, oh, great, these armies are coming after me? He looks around, he looks at his army, he looks at their armies, and he's like, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. And he gets so caught up looking at the world around him, so worried about the problems right in front of his face, he forgets to look up at the God who's above him. And I don't know about you, but I can relate to that in a powerful and personal way. Like when things aren't going the way I want them to go. In big things where it feels like my life is crashing down all around me and it's going to be over. And in small things, when I'm facing an obstacle I just don't know how to overcome, it's easy for me to get so close to my problems in the myopia of the moment that they seem like they're bigger than my God. It's easy for me to feel like, oh great, this is hopeless, there's nothing I can do, and to allow fear to well up so powerfully in my soul that it determines every decision I make. Anybody else ever been there? Like, it's what we do when the world isn't the way we want it to be. It's what Ahab does too. He just panics. And before we jump into God's response to him, I just think his reaction is a great reminder to all of us that when the world around us looks scary, we need to look up at the God who's in control. When it feels like hope is just evaporating from our souls, we need to fix our eyes on the one who can make a way, even when there is no human way. That's what God is trying to get into Ahaz's head. And so he sends Isaiah with a message for him. This is what it says in Isaiah chapter 7, starting in verse 3. It says, "And the Lord said to Isaiah, go out to meet Ahaz, you and Shear-Jashub your son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool on the highway to the washer's field, and say to him, be careful, be quiet, do not fear, and do not let your heart be faint because of these two smoldering stumps of firebrands at the fierce anger of Rezin and Syria-Aram and the son of Remaliah. Because Syria with Ephraim and the son of Remaliah has devised evil against you, saying, let us go up against Judah and terrify it, and let us conquer it for ourselves and set up the son of Tabeel as king in the midst of it. Thus says the Lord God, it shall not stand, and it shall not come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years, Ephraim will be shattered from being a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is the son of Remaliah. If you are not firm in faith, you will not be firm at all. And again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz. Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be as deep as Sheol or as high as the heavens. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test. All right, real quick time out. It seems like Ahaz is being holy here. He's like, God, I'm not going to test you at all. But he's not. Really, he just doesn't believe that God can do it. So he's like, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. And Isaiah gets really annoyed because Isaiah knows what's happening. And he's like, listen up. Because hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary men that you must weary God also? Isaiah's like, you're so annoying, man. You're annoying me. You're annoying God. And I'm sick of you. So God's going to give you a sign anyway. Right? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey when he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the boy knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land whose two kings you dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring upon you and upon your people and upon your father's house such days as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria. All right, so here's Ahaz, and he's terrified, and he's worried, and he's looking up at Israel and over at Aram, feeling like, oh man, we're outnumbered, there's no hope for me, and God shows up and sends Isaiah to him and says, hey, ask me for a sign. Let me prove to you that I am who I say that I am. And deep down in his soul, Ahaz is like, I don't think God is that. And so he tries to mask this doubt with this like fake piety. He's like, oh no, thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test. And Isaiah is ticked because he looks at him. He's like, listen, dude, it's not testing God when God tells you to do it. It's obeying God. God is sick of you. So listen up, idiot. That's the literal Hebrew. That's what I went to school for, so I could accurately translate this for you. Because listen up, idiot. God's going to give you a sign anyway. And here's what it's going to be. The virgin is going to conceive, and she's going to give birth to a son, and the son will be named Emmanuel. And that's going to be a sign to you, like this constant enduring sign that I'm powerful and I'm present. And the question is, why is that name, Emmanuel, supposed to inspire any sort of confidence in Ahaz? Well, what sort of an enduring sign of God's presence is it? Well, it's a really interesting name. It's actually a compound word in Hebrew. Im is a word that means with. Imanu means with us. And El is just the generic Hebrew word for God. All right, so Imanu, El, literally translates with us, God. God with us. Don't miss what Isaiah is doing here. Like when he shows up and says the baby's going to be born named Emmanuel, this is a promise from God that he's going to save his people because he's powerful and he's present. And how is this rescue going to come? This is not going to come from any sort of political solution. It's not going to come from any sort of military solution. They're vastly outnumbered. There's no political or military way out of this. The only salvation that's available to God's people is his presence and his power caring about them. He says, because I love you, it's not going down. Because I'm literally here with you, no one is going to destroy you. Like the name Emmanuel embodies God's saving presence. I think this prophecy is so cool because it occurs on two levels at once. There's like an immediate level of this prophecy that Isaiah and Ahaz can see right there in the 8th century BC. God is like, I know armies are coming against you. I know your life is scary right now, but I am here. I'm right here. I'm in Jerusalem, in Judah with you, and I'm going to save you. But there's also this like cosmic meta level that only God can see as he looks forward 750 years to the birth of Jesus. And we have the benefit of hindsight. We can look back and realize that God wasn't just talking to Isaiah and Ahaz and Judah. He was talking to all people across all time and all space, saying, I am with you. I'm not going to abandon you to the brokenness and hopelessness that your sin created. I refuse to leave you in that space. I'm stepping in.